Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargav, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. Tomorrow, on the 8th of October, the Election Commission will announce the results of the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly elections, which were held in 3 phases after a gap of 10 years.
They technically should have happened right after the PDP-BJP government fell in June 2018.
That's Indian Express's Naveed Iqbal, who reports on the region for the paper.
But since then, we've been in a period of governor's rule, and then the state became a UT, so the elections were delayed further. Many people thought that they might be clubbed initially with the 2019 parliament election, and that didn't happen. And then with this year's parliamentary election, and that also did not happen, despite the Supreme Court setting a deadline to conduct these assembly elections. So after 2014, this year elections have been conducted, these 3-phase polls. And for at least the last 6 years, the people of J&K have not had representation in the assembly. While there have been other forms of governance like Panchayati Raj institutions and MPs have been in place, but the legislature was empty. So that level of representation people had really been missing. And also all the laws that were being framed for governing J&K and the decisions of administration, law and order, all of those were being taken by the Lieutenant Governor. And hence, J&K didn't have a participation in legislating its own affairs. So that's why these elections hold great importance.
And so we are dedicating today's episode to talk about how these elections have played out, the biggest issues that have been on the minds of the voters, and what exactly is at stake for them. Naveed, during the Lok Sabha polls earlier this year, we saw that people in the region were keen to come out and cast their vote. Could you talk about what drove them to the polling booths and the extent to which we saw that this time?
So I'll start by talking about DDC elections also. In 2020, which was one of the first elections that took place after the abrogation of Article 370. So in those polls, the mainstream participated. In the Panchayat elections held before that, the mainstream didn't participate. So in the 2020 DDC elections, the participation was also high. Not as high as these elections, but also higher than previous elections, with the sense that we have to keep the BJP out. That was the sense then. And obviously the PAGD, which was a regional mainstream coalition that was in place then, won by a landslide. In the parliament elections, there was a lot of sense of defiance. We are participating in Indian democracy, but there was also a sense of defiance that we've had no other recourse for the last 10 years. So we are going to take this into our own hands and vote and take charge of these elections and send our people to the parliament. So that sense of voting with a sense of defiance was even more enhanced in the assembly elections.
Okay, so keeping the BJP out is one big reason. What are some of the other factors that made people turn out to vote this time?
So one of the key factors is this lack of political representation over the last 6 years, majorly. So for the first 3.5 years, there was a government, PDP, BJP. But since then, there's been a deep sense of this lack of political representation and also this a certain fatigue with bureaucratic rule. So in the cities where people don't deal so much with the government because, your basic matters of pani, bijli, sadak do get addressed in cities. But in the villages where people don't have too much recourse, they would have to deal with the bureaucracy, the deputy commissioners, the officers of the administration who they would have to go to repeatedly to get their work done. And the secretariat was empty because, people didn't know who to meet. Otherwise, when there are ministers in place or there are MLAs in place, the secretariats are full. So the footfall of the secretariat was reduced significantly over these past few years. So to address all of that and to have local leadership who they could at least go to. So in this election, a lot of what we heard was ki at least sunwai milegi. We will have somebody who could listen to us, who we could reach out to. So with bureaucracy, there's a sense of unaccountability that they are not accountable to us. They are perhaps, accountable to their own bosses like the LG or the chief secretary. But with an MLA, people have a sense of authority that they can go catch hold of them or at least visit them in their homes, in their offices.
Right, the difference between a local leader versus a babu.
Yeah. So that they were missing, and that was a very big factor. While the NC was hammering in this fact that you have to vote considering who will be in the assembly, a lot of voting locally was happening in terms of who's the most accessible candidate. Who can I go and reach out to?
And when we talk about the concerns of the voters, did we find sort of the bread and butter issues playing a major role in these polls?
So in the first phase in South Kashmir, while across J&K, one, lack of political representation, two, unemployment, and three, mehengai, like were big issues. But specifically in South Kashmir in the first phase, there was a lot of talk of pakad dhakkad, like people whose kids are being called to police stations repeatedly or are incarcerated. In every village that you went to with these candidates, somebody or the other would come up and say, I have sons that are incarcerated. Or they would say, they keep calling him to the police station repeatedly. So I need somebody who I can reach out to. And if you get elected, please, can you help me get rid of this problem or help me get... They are saying that call them back, put them in jails in Srinagar so that at least we can go meet them. They're in jails outside Kashmir. So that was one main issue. In central Kashmir, since it's closer to Srinagar and in and around Srinagar, 370 and the conversations around statehood were more prominent. And in North Kashmir, issues of say water, connectivity, unemployment, a huge issue. So these issues varied regionally also. But the issues of Bijli, Sadak, Pani, because there are no elected representatives, also play a big role.
And you mentioned Bijli, and we understand that the issue of long power cuts in winter is something that people have complained about for a long time now. Where is this problem most apparent?
I think that problem was most severe across villages in Kashmir. But when Rahul Gandhi was campaigning in Sopore, he also made the point that if and when they form government, they will do away with smart meters.
ये जो स्मार्ट मीटर्स लगा रखे हैं, ये जो नरेंद्र मोदी जी की टेक्नोलॉजी है, इसको हम यहां से हटा देंगे. ये हमें नहीं चाहिए.
Now, smart meters are a new technology that J&K government was implementing. I think it's being implemented across the country, but it's being implemented in J&K to enhance revenue of the public distribution department, which is our power department, because they are buying electricity from the northern grid, which they say is very expensive to the exchequer. So that issue is also immense. And they say power bills have gone up, but to all the voters that I spoke to, and I asked them if power supply, like the hours had changed, they said, no, it's the same 2-3 hours, 6 hours maximum, but the bills have gone up. So that, equipped by the state of the economy right now, it's really crippling people in the villages at least.
Also, your investigation last year had showed how drug addiction has caused a lot of devastation in the valley. In fact, you mentioned that one patient walked into the OPD every 12 minutes because of it. Did this become a poll issue at all?
It didn't become a poll issue, but it did feature in almost every party's manifestos. So when they talk about the demographics that they're trying to address, women and youth and, when they talk about pensions, etc., the fight against drugs was part of the manifesto, but it didn't really become a big issue in the elections itself. Largely because I think with this election being so critical, they are hoping to address larger issues of what happens to statehood, what are the next steps for the restoration of Article 370, etc.
And Naveed, we know that regional parties in Jammu and Kashmir have a lot of sway, especially compared to many other parts of the country. What have they been promising people now that they are turning out to vote?
So, especially in Kashmir, regional parties always hold more sway than national parties. So the NC, which has been at the forefront of the fight, the legal battle against the revocation of Article 370, and who think, they are the best poised to form the next government.
Right, NC is the one with the largest presence in the region.
Largest presence, cadre in every district, etc. So they have been steadfast on this 370 approach. So their campaign, one of the first things in their manifesto is that we will continue the fight to restore Article 370 and statehood.
Look, 370, the special status of Jammu and Kashmir is part of the National Conference's political ideology. So it's not something that we are going to just surrender. That said, we're also realistic enough to know that that's not something this assembly is going to do. You'll probably need a couple of changes of government in the centre before it's something that you can even begin to address. Look, it took the BJP decades.
So they are refusing to shift the goalpost to just statehood as the centre has been promising. So they've talked about restoring 370. So has the PDP, so have other regional parties. But in other areas, like other than party chiefs like Umar Abdullah or Mehbooba Mufti, the candidates who are campaigning are also talking about Naukri, about Bijli. They are talking about, dealing with this system of verifications. So the weaponization of a verification process for government jobs, for passports, for documentation has been a matter of concern over the last 5 years with, police functioning without a government. So the verifications have been a grave concern, and all parties have spoken about that. But they've also spent a lot of time attacking each other, like who's a BJP proxy and who's not. But they've also dealt the issue of how future of the youth of Kashmir is being compromised and attacking the BJP's Naya Kashmir narrative.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the BJP in a bit, but when we talk about the National Conference, it has allied with the Congress party. Could you talk about the challenges they have faced in forming an alliance and what the two parties are looking at?
So, as soon as the elections were announced, negotiations between NC and Congress had begun. Congress was also in talks with PDP. But a certain narrative had started taking hold in the political circles in Kashmir that NC will form the next government with BJP. While NC, because of the presence that it has across J&K, was seen as the natural, next leader in forming government, because PDP has faced an exodus of leaders and it's still bearing the brunt of its coalition with the BJP in the last election. So in this election, NC looked like it was in a far better position than other regional parties. So they started talking to the Congress, and NC announced this as a formal pre-poll alliance because Umar Abdullah said that, people are talking about us joining hands with the BJP after polls. So I want to arrest that right away, even before the elections are held. So they started talking, and under a seat-sharing arrangement was negotiated, as per which NC would contest 51 seats plus 5, and Congress would contest 32 plus 5. The 5 are friendly contest seats. But we've seen in some seats, leaders of both parties that wanted ticket for, whichever constituency they wanted to contest, they've gone against the party, resigned and contested those seats anyway.
And you mentioned the PDP. Now we know that during the last assembly polls, the PDP had allied with the BJP to form the government. But that, of course, did not work out and the government fell. So what position does the PDP find itself in right now? Has it managed to shed that BJP tag at all? Because one thing we saw was that its tallest leader, Mehbooba Mufti, she did not contest this time.
So in the run-up to parliament elections this year, all the party chiefs, because they did not want to be part of a UT government or did not want to become, chief ministers to a stunted, what they call is a stunted assembly. So they all fought parliament elections. Sajad Lone, Umar Abdullah, Mehbooba Mufti, everybody contested parliament polls, thinking that they'll be in parliament and, the second rung of leadership can take care of the J&K elections. But Umar and Mehbooba both lost, and so did Sajad. So Umar had initially said he will not contest. He had been saying for the last 4.5-5 years that he will never contest to a J&K assembly. But he contested 2 seats in this election, and so did Sajad Lone. But Mehbooba Mufti, who had said she will not, she was the last chief minister of the state and the only woman chief minister of J&K. So she decided not to contest the polls. But her party did. They contested all the 47 seats in Kashmir and a few in Jammu also, in the Pir Panjal area. Her daughter is contesting her first election from Bijbihara, which is the family bastion. Her conviction, I think they find themselves in a place where the party's strength is considerably reduced in terms of numbers. And they think that because they are also attacked so often for this by the opposition, they feel like they cannot yet wish away or wash off the alliance factor, the aligning with the BJP. And BJP is sort of the biggest demon there is in the electoral scene, because if one party needs to demean the other, they term each other BJP proxies. So that's like the biggest insult that is hurled at anybody in this election. So PDP is still fighting some of that, but also they've used this as a cadre building exercise. So they've campaigned very hard. They've shown their presence in at least every constituency. They are trying to revive themselves, but also whether or not they win much, they are treating this as a cadre building exercise also.
खबरदार करना चाहती हूँ बिलखुसूस कश्मीर के लोगों को, आपके यहाँ बिला शक पीडीपी, एनसी, कांग्रेस पार्टी है. इसके अलावा जितने भी आप मैदान में इस वक्त देख रहे हैं, जितने भी लोग घूम रहे हैं, खासकर एआईपी की जो पार्टी घूम रही है, इसकी बैकिंग पीछे से हो रही है. ये खबरदार रहिए, ये बहुत नुकसान पहुंचाता है.
And Naveed, at a time when people are calling their opponents BJP proxies just to insult them, what position does the BJP find itself in? Because even with so many security personnel in the region, militancy has not reduced significantly. We are still witnessing a fair share of encounters in the region. How is the party countering the criticisms against it?
So BJP did not contest the parliament elections at all. The 3 seats in Kashmir they didn't contest, but Jammu they contested the 2 seats and they won those 2 seats. Ladakh they lost, which they had earlier. So they constantly stay on their line is the development plank, and their candidates, their leadership has been telling people that the mainstream leadership, these teen parivar that the PM also came and spoke about, that they are lying to you about the return of 370 and that won't happen.
इन तीन खानदानों को लगता है कि इन पर कोई कैसे सवाल उठा सकता है। इन तीन खानदानों को लगता है जैसे तैसे कुर्सी पर कब्जा जमाना और फिर आप सबको लूटना।
They also sort of have been talking about how J&K needs to move forward and look ahead and do not look at the past anymore, and how much it is now a part of the, the national mainstream. And also the BJP has used the voting in the high voter turnout in the parliament election as a way of sort of like a reaffirmation of democracy by the people of J&K. But regional parties have used that to say that this is actually an act of defiance against you. For democracy, but against, the center's moves, and that's why they are empowering regional parties. So Omar Abdullah has also countered them as saying, this is not a vote for you, so you have to stop taking credit for it. He's also attacked the center for not contesting parliament polls and also having very little presence in assembly elections also. So in Jammu, they've been campaigning. We saw Home Minister Amit Shah come and campaign there, and Defense Minister Rajnath Singh campaigned there. But in Kashmir, there was lesser presence, lesser noise around the BJP campaign.
Okay, so when we talk about these elections, it's clear that the issue of Article 370 has played a big role. I mean, the special status is what allowed J&K to have its own constitution, its own penal code, what determined the right of permanent residence in the region. But when you spoke to people, what did they have to tell you about the reasons why they want it back?
So to voters who I asked, what was it about 370 that they would most want to see return? It was less to do with governance and more to do with because unemployment is such a big issue. So a lot of people said that पिछली बार घर में जिसकी भी नौकरी लगी थी, that was during 370, when 370 was in place and when we had a popular government. That's the last time I remember that anybody in my family got a job. So they think that if 370 was sort of restored, or at least statehood was restored, then the competition in jobs that has opened up nationally now will again come back to being local. So that is one of the concerns that, still keeps the issues alive. Of course, political leaders talk about it in every rally and how protection of identity and protection of resources is important. But this issue of jobs and land security, of nobody taking away their land, that sort of xenophobia that exists around the whole 370 issue, that also fares in people's minds.
And right now you have different political parties promising that they will restore Article 370. But can you talk about what challenges they will face in doing that?
So NC has spoken the most about it, and Omar Abdullah has repeatedly said that, well, it won't happen now, but we've had Supreme Court judgments in the past that had affirmed 370. And so we can look forward to the next 30 years of this fight and, fight this out in court again. Nobody knows if, this judgment could be reversed, or that, a favorable government comes in the center that does restore 370. So I'd asked him this about whether there was any agreement or any talk at all with the Congress, because Congress has been completely quiet on 370. Rahul Gandhi did 3 rallies in J&K and he only spoke about statehood repeatedly.
We are hoping that statehood would be restored as soon as possible, and the rights of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, democratic rights, will be restored to them. I said earlier in the meeting that this is the first time since independence that a state has become union territories. This has never happened before. Union territories have become states.
In fact, his 3 speeches were nearly identical all 3 times.
And is that a point of contention between the NC and the Congress?
That's not so much a point of contention as it is that Congress would not want to lose India for Kashmir. They can't talk about 370 here and then have that, backfire in the rest of the country. And also Haryana elections are playing. So for that, they've been very careful. And any political leader that's been sent to, speak to the address rallies or speak to the press in Kashmir, they've been completely silent on 370 despite questions asked by the press every time. So NC has said that this is a long haul and we'll fight this no matter how long it takes. It took the BJP and RSS as many years to achieve this. So why should we back down?
And Naveed, the other thing you have written about are the 5 members who will actually be nominated to the assembly, and which could affect the outcome of these polls a lot. Can you tell us what concerns this has raised and what the role of these 5 members is going to be?
So out of the 5, 2 nominations are part of the original Reorganization Act in 2019, which states that the governor has the discretion to nominate 2 women members if he feels that women aren't adequately represented in the assembly that's been elected. But because elections weren't announced and there was no indication of elections, there was no conversation around it. Even in parliament, there was no conversation around it. But as the assembly elections went underway, more and more people started talking about what the majority number would be. So as of today, there are 90 elected members and 5 nominated members. In 2023, another amendment was added for inclusion of Kashmiri migrants, a man and a woman, and displaced people from POK. So this makes it 5 nominated members. Now, because J&K Assembly is largely modeled on the Puducherry Assembly, where there are 3 nominated members with full voting rights, they work at par with elected MLAs. While the amendments itself are not clear on whether they have voting rights, but the legal silence on the issue is being interpreted to understand that they will have voting rights because Puducherry has. That now makes this majority question more significant. Because say the BJP has 43 and the BJP appointed LG nominates 5 members, it's understood that they'll have 43 plus 5, which is 48, which is your majority mark. But if you're anyone else other than the BJP, you need 48 members to counter the 5. So that conversation took hold and that is now being challenged by political parties. The Congress has raised objections, so has the NC and the BJP, because they feel like these 5 members, because it's unclear right now whether anybody has clear majority, but they may use it to their benefit.
And earlier you were talking about how the NC is likely to get the most number of seats. It's allied with the Congress, but if they don't hit the majority mark, one of the parties that they can look at is the PDP. But it turns out that these 2 parties are not getting along. Can you tell us why that is? Because after the abrogation of Article 370, we did see them come together as part of the PAGD. And both of them are still against the BJP.
One is that they are historical rivals. So initially, for a long period of time, NC was the only regional party that had hold over Kashmir. So PDP chief Mufti Muhammad Saeed was a minister in the center. And then he came back to Kashmir. He was associated with the Congress earlier. Then he came to Kashmir and created the PDP, and they became a regional counter to the NC. So this rivalry goes back to, who controls Kashmir, that turf war. And then BJP aligned with the PDP and that distance grew, that chasm grew even wider. But then in a post-370 scenario, which is 2019, it was Mehbooba Mufti who initiated the creation of the PAGD. She walked to Farooq Abdullah's house and also convinced Sajad Lone of the PCE and said that, for the sake of Kashmir's future, we all need to come together and unitedly fight the BJP. But since then, their old rivalries haven't gone anywhere. And while till the parliament, they were still accommodating each other, not commenting openly against each other. This election, it's no holds barred and they've really attacked each other and gone after each other. So that rivalry plays out every day. So in a scenario where, say, the NC and Congress are short of a few members, their natural choice perhaps would be India Alliance member, like PDP still India Alliance member, to get support from them. And PDP said in this election that they are expecting themselves to be kingmakers. So it really depends on where they land, what numbers everybody lands.
And Naveed, you have been reporting on J&K politics for 7 years now. Tell us what has stood out to you the most about these polls.
One of the things that I think stood out to me was regular people's interactions with engagement with the democratic process, the electoral process. In previous elections that I've covered, there were workers' meets in small places or workers' meets with the party leaders, etc. But this election saw a lot more engagement. There were big rallies in crowded places, say in Shupian or in the middle of the town in Sopore, in the middle of the market in Sopore. So those things. And also one of the key factors this election is that there are so many candidates, there are so many players. So while the regional and national parties are of course holding big campaigns, there's also the engineer Rashid factor, which I think his win led to so many independents being in this campaign. The NC and the regional parties, of course, accused the BJP of fragmenting the Kashmir vote by introducing many independents. And right at the onset, Umar Abdullah said that, the independents won't be able to help you. Look at Engineer Rashid, you elected him, but he's still in jail and he's only out on interim bail. That, and with the Jamaat-e-Islami, which is banned, but there's a panel which is backing a few candidates. So those factors, how people are engaging more with the electoral process and are participating in elections, that has been remarkable.
And we also didn't see a lot of boycotting this time, right?
So in areas that used to see very low voting, like Sopore or Srinagar or Shupian, like some areas of South Kashmir, in the absence of a poll boycott, those areas have also voted. I think of all the districts that I went to in this election, Sopore surprised me the most because they had the most noise around their campaign. Like the markets had election paraphernalia from every party. There's not an electricity pole in Sopore that doesn't have posters from candidates of different parties. While one candidate is campaigning, the vehicles and convoys of others crisscross. So Sopore that way was surprising, and it had one of the most fervent election campaigns this election. So those things also stood out.
And now the results will be announced tomorrow, and we'll have to see how post-poll alliances work out if no one party gets the majority. But tell us, what do you think is most at stake this time?
So one of the anxieties within the regional parties here is that the revocation of Article 370 does not still have the stamp of the J&K Assembly. While in 2019, the governor, as a representative of the government here, did sign that. But when we spoke to Umar Abdullah in August, he said that they are concerned that the next assembly, if say the BJP is in power, they'll use their majority to stamp the revocation of Article 370. So this is something that the NC has been talking about in their campaign. If they've been trying to drill this information, they will repeat it to the people, that a government that does not approve what happened on August 5th, 2019 needs to be in place in the assembly. So that's one of the biggest factors. And also addressing the day-to-day issues of the Kashmiri people from Jammu and Kashmir both. That is paramount after this, because 10 years of not having elections, 6 years of not having an elected government has really led to a system of bureaucratic Raj with which there is immense fatigue.
You were listening to Three Things by The Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargav, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.